Picture this. A little girl sits alone in her room, clutching a drawing she poured her heart into, waiting for anyone to notice. But no one does. That silent ache, that invisible wound, has a name: emotional neglect. It's not the bruises you can see, but the ones you carry inside, shaping how you love, how you live, and how you see yourself. In this video, we're diving deep into Carl Jung's wisdom to uncover what happens when a child is never seen and how you can start healing that child within you today. Over the next 40 minutes, you'll discover the hidden masks you wear, the pain you've buried, and practical steps to reclaim your true self. Stick with us, because this journey might just change the way you see you. Hit that play button, and let's begin. What does it feel like to be invisible? Not the kind of invisible where you disappear into thin air, but the kind where your heart aches for someone to see you, to hear you, to care, and no one does. This is the quiet, piercing pain of emotional neglect. It's not the loud scars of abuse you can point to. It's the absence of something essential, the warmth of a parent's gaze, the comfort of their questions, the safety of knowing your feelings matter. In this chapter, we're diving into what emotional neglect really is, how it shapes a child's world, and why it lingers long after childhood fades. Inspired by Carl Jung's profound insights, we'll explore the wound of being unseen and how it sets the stage for the masks we wear to survive. Let's start with a story. Meet Emma, an 8-year-old girl with bright eyes and a knack for drawing. Every evening, she sits at the kitchen table, sketching vibrant worlds filled with color and imagination. She hopes her mom or dad will notice. Maybe ask about the dragon she drew, or the castle in the clouds. But her parents are always busy. Her mum's scrolling through her phone. Her dad's buried in work. Emma's drawings pile up, unseen, untouched. One day, she gets a perfect score on a spelling test. She rushes home, clutching the paper like a treasure, her heart pounding with hope. But when she shows it to her mom, all she gets is a distracted nod and a quick, "That's nice, honey." No questions, no celebration, just silence. That silence stings more than any scolding ever could. This is emotional neglect. It's not about cruelty or malice. It's not about parents who yell or punish. It's about what doesn't happen, the hugs that never come, the conversations that never start, the moments when a child's inner world is left unexplored. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist who revolutionized how we understand the human psyche, believed that a child's sense of self depends on being mirrored. Mirroring is when a caregiver reflects a child's emotions, validates their experiences, and shows them they're real, they're important. When a parent asks, "How was your day?" and listens, really listens, that's mirroring. When they notice a child's tears and say, "I see you're hurting, let's talk," that's mirroring. But when those moments are absent, when a child like Emma searches for connection and finds only silence, their sense of self begins to fracture. Emotional neglect is invisible, but its impact is profound. It's the birthday where no one remembers to ask how you feel about turning a year older. It's the quiet dinner table where everyone's together, but no one's really there. It's the ache of wanting to share your fears, your joys, your dreams, and realizing no one's listening. For a child, this absence isn't just disappointing, it's disorienting. Children don't have the words to name this pain. They can't say, "I'm experiencing emotional neglect." So they do what any child does. They make sense of it the only way they know how. They start to believe it's their fault. If no one sees me, they think, maybe I'm not worth seeing. If no one cares about my feelings, Maybe they don't matter. This is where the wound begins. Carl Jung once said, "Shame is a soul-eating emotion, and shame is exactly what grows in the silence of emotional neglect. It's not the shame of doing something wrong, it's the shame of being wrong, of existing as someone who doesn't seem to matter." For Emma, every unasked question, every ignored drawing, plants a seed of doubt. Maybe I'm too much. Maybe I'm not enough. Over time, these seeds grow into a quiet belief that her emotions, her needs, her very presence are unimportant. She learns to tiptoe around her feelings, to hide her excitement, to swallow her tears. Because if no one responds, why bother sharing at all? Unlike physical neglect, where the absence of food or shelter is tangible, emotional neglect is harder to pin down. On the surface, everything might look fine. Emma's parents provide food, clothes, a roof over her head. They're not mean or abusive, they're just disconnected. Maybe they're overwhelmed with their own struggles, working long hours, or simply don't know how to connect emotionally. They might even think they're doing their best, but emotional neglect doesn't require bad intentions. It just requires a consistent absence of emotional attunement. And that absence leaves a mark. Carl Jung taught that the self, the core of who we are, needs to be seen to develop fully. Without that reflection, parts of a child's psyche go dormant. Their joy dims. Their fears grow heavy. They start to split into two selves, who they really are and who they think they need to be loved. For Emma, that might mean becoming the good girl who never asks for too much, who stays quiet to avoid bothering anyone. She might stop showing her drawings altogether, burying that creative spark because it never got the light it needed to grow. Here's the thing. This wound doesn't just vanish when you grow up. The child who felt unseen carries that ache into adulthood, where it shapes how you see yourself, how you love, how you live. You might become hyper-independent, too afraid to ask for help, because you learned early on that no one would show up. You might apologize for taking up space. Even when you've done nothing wrong, you might feel a nagging emptiness. Even when life looks perfect on the outside, that's the silent pain of emotional neglect. It's not loud, but it's always there, whispering doubts, making you question your worth. So, have you ever felt like Emma? Have you ever waited for someone to notice your pain, your joy, your presence, and found only silence? If you have, you're not alone. Emotional neglect is more common than we think, and its effects run deep. But here's the good news. Understanding this pain is the first step to healing it. In the next chapter, we'll explore the masks we wear to cope with this wound. The hero, the caretaker, the invisible one, and how they shape who we become. Stay with us, because this journey is about rediscovering the you that's been waiting to be seen. Takeaway. When a child is never seen, they start to believe they're invisible. But that belief isn't the truth. It's just the wound talking. When you're a child who feels unseen, you don't just sit in that pain. You adapt. You find a way to survive. You learn, without even realizing it, to become someone else. Someone who might finally be noticed. These are the masks we wear. What Carl Jung called the persona, the version of ourselves we show the world. Not because it's who we are, but because it's who we think we need to be, to feel safe, to belong, to be loved. In this chapter, we're diving into the masks that emotionally neglected children create to cope with their invisible wounds. Through real stories, we'll explore three common personas: the hero, the caretaker, and the invisible one, and how they shape who we become. But more importantly, we'll ask, Which mask are you wearing? And what's it costing you? Let's start with James, a 35-year-old CEO who seems to have it all: big house, corner office, a packed schedule of speaking gigs. But beneath the polished suit, James is exhausted. Growing up, his parents never praised his efforts unless he brought home straight A's or won a trophy. Love felt like a prize he had to earn. So, James became the hero. He worked harder, stayed up later, pushed himself to the limit. Every achievement felt like a fleeting moment of being seen until it wasn't enough, and he had to do more. Now, as an adult, James can't slow down. His worth is tied to his output. But late at night, when the emails stop and the applause fades, a quiet question haunts him. If I stop achieving, will anyone still care? The hero is one mask, and it's a heavy one. Carl Jung described the persona as a shield, a way to navigate a world that doesn't always see the real you. For emotionally neglected kids, the hero archetype is a survival strategy. You learn that success brings attention, and attention feels like love. So, you strive. You become the star student, the overachiever, the one who grows up too fast. You tie your worth to what you do, your grades, your job, your ability to carry everyone else's burdens. But here's the trap: the hero's mask is never enough. No matter how much you achieve, the child inside you is still waiting for someone to say, "You're enough just as you are." Then there's Lisa, a 28-year-old nurse who's always the first to volunteer, the last to leave. She's the friend who listens to everyone's problems, the colleague who picks up extra shifts, the daughter who never says no to her parents. Growing up, Lisa's family was chaotic. Her parents were too caught up in their own struggles to notice her. So, she became the caretaker. She learned to read every emotional cue, to anticipate needs before they were spoken, to make herself indispensable. Being needed felt like being loved. But now, Lisa's drained. She gives so much that there's nothing left for herself. She rarely asks for help, because deep down, she believes her own needs are a burden. When a friend cancels plans, Lisa smiles and says, "No worries." But inside, she's crumbling, wondering why no one ever shows up for her. The caretaker mask is another survival tactic. Carl Jung taught that the persona isn't just a lie, it's a necessary adaptation. For kids like Lisa, becoming the caretaker means you get a role, a place in the family, a reason to exist. You become the glue that holds everyone together, the one who fixes problems, the one who never complains. But this mask comes at a cost. You start to believe your worth depends on how much you give. Your own emotions, your own needs, get buried. And over time, you forget how to ask for what you need, because you were taught that your feelings are less important than everyone else's. And then there's Mark, a 32-year-old graphic designer who fades into the background at every meeting. He speaks softly, avoids conflict, and rarely shares his ideas. Growing up, Mark's parents were emotionally distant, too busy or too distracted to notice his excitement or his fears. Every time he tried to speak up, he was met with silence or dismissal. So, Mark became the invisible one. He learned that it's safer to shrink, to blend in, to need nothing. Being unnoticed became his comfort zone, because at least then, no one could reject him. But now, Mark feels a quiet itch. He wants connection, but he's terrified of being seen. He dreams of speaking up, but his voice feels stuck, like it's been locked away for years. The invisible one is perhaps the most heartbreaking mask. Carl Jung warned that when we wear the persona too long, we risk losing touch with our true selves. For the invisible child, disappearing becomes a way to stay safe. You suppress your desires, mute your emotions, and fade into the shadows, not because you don't want to be seen, but because you've given up hope that anyone will. This mask feels like protection, but it's also a prison. It keeps you from the connection you crave, the love you deserve, the life you could live if you dared to step into the light. These masks, the hero, the caretaker, the invisible one, aren't weaknesses. They're brilliant, tragic strategies that a child's psyche creates to survive emotional neglect. Carl Jung believed that our psyche develops patterns in response to pain, and these patterns become archetypal roles we carry into adulthood. They're how we cope when connection feels out of reach. But here's the catch. These masks don't just protect you, they define you. They become so familiar that you forget they're not the real you. You might think, I'm just a hard worker, or I'm just easygoing, or I don't need much. But deep down, there's a voice whispering, what if I could be more than this? So, let's pause and reflect. Which mask do you recognize in yourself? Are you the hero, always striving to prove your worth? The caretaker, giving until you're empty? Or the invisible one, hiding to stay safe? These roles helped you survive a time when being yourself felt too risky, but they also keep you from the freedom of being fully known, fully loved, fully you. In the next chapter, we'll explore how these masks follow you into adulthood, shaping your relationships, your choices, and your sense of self. Stay with us, because understanding these patterns is the first step to breaking free. Takeaway: these masks helped you survive, but they're not who you are. The real you is still there, waiting to be seen. The pain of being unseen doesn't stay locked in childhood. It follows you, quiet but relentless, into adulthood. It's not a loud trauma you can point to. It's a subtle hunger, a lingering sense that something's missing. Even when your life looks full, emotional neglect shapes how you see yourself, how you love, how you navigate the world. In this chapter, we're diving into the lasting echoes of being emotionally neglected as a child. Inspired by Carl Jung's wisdom, through real stories, we'll uncover how those invisible wounds show up in your habits, your relationships, and your inner voice. And we'll ask, do you recognize these echoes in your life? Because seeing them is the first step to breaking free. Meet Sarah, a 35-year-old marketing manager who seems confident on the outside, sharp, organized, always delivering. But inside, she's constantly second-guessing herself. Growing up, Sarah's parents rarely asked how she felt. Her emotions were met with silence or a quick, "You're fine. Don't overreact." So, she learned to hide her feelings, to apologize for having them. Now, as an adult, Sarah says sorry for everything: spilling coffee, sharing an opinion, even asking for help. She feels selfish just for having needs. When a colleague praises her work, she brushes it off, unable to believe she's enough. Deep down, Sarah's still waiting for the validation she never got, still bracing for the silence she grew up with. This is one of the echoes of emotional neglect, a nagging sense that you don't matter unless you're perfect. Carl Jung said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." For those who were emotionally neglected, this loneliness is a constant companion. You might be surrounded by friends, colleagues, or family, but still feel disconnected. Like you're there but not truly known. You might over-explain yourself, fearing misunderstanding, or stay silent, assuming no one cares. This inner exile, this sense of being unseen, stems from a childhood where your emotions were rarely mirrored, rarely held. Another echo is the harsh inner critic. For many, like Sarah, the silence of childhood becomes a voice that lives inside you, one that questions your worth, demands more, and dismisses your feelings. You might work twice as hard as others, not out of ambition, but out of fear of being not enough. You might feel guilty for saying no, because you were taught that your needs are optional. Or you might struggle to even name what you're feeling, because no one ever taught you how to hold emotions safely. This isn't random. It's the residue of a childhood where your inner world wasn't welcomed, where your presence wasn't fully engaged. Let's look at Michael, a 40-year-old teacher who's always busy. He fills his days with lesson plans, volunteer work, and helping friends. But he avoids stillness at all costs. Growing up, Michael's parents were physically present, but emotionally absent. They provided for him but never asked about his dreams or fears. Silence became his normal, and stillness felt like a void where doubts crept in. Now, as an adult, Michael keeps himself busy to outrun that void. When he's alone, he feels restless, like something's wrong but he can't name it. He overcommits, over-delivers, and says yes to everything, because saying no feels like failing. His nervous system is still wired for survival, still waiting for someone to notice the boy who was never truly seen. This need to stay busy, to prove your worth, is another echo of emotional neglect. Carl Jung believed that much of our suffering comes from what we avoid. And for the emotionally neglected, stillness is terrifying. It's in the quiet moments that the old wounds surface: the fear of being unimportant, the ache of being unlovable. So, you might chase perfection, not because you love it, but because you hope it'll finally make you enough. You might seek validation in achievements, relationships, or likes on social media, but the high never lasts. Why? Because the child inside you isn't looking for applause, they're looking for connection. For someone to say, "I see you, and you matter." Emotional neglect also shows up in how you love. You might choose partners who are emotionally unavailable, because that's what feels familiar. Or you might give everything in relationships, hoping to earn love, only to feel empty when it's not returned. You might fear vulnerability, because opening up feels like risking rejection all over again. These patterns aren't coincidences. They're echoes of a time when your emotions weren't safe, when your needs were dismissed. Carl Jung taught that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. These unconscious patterns, born from emotional neglect, quietly shape your choices, your self-image, your relationships. But here's the truth. These echoes don't define you. They're not proof that you're broken. They're signals, pointing to the parts of you that still need to be seen. The good news is, you can hear them now. You can start noticing when you apologize for no reason, when you push yourself too hard, when you hide your true feelings to keep the peace. These moments aren't failures. They're invitations to reconnect with the child inside you, the one who's still waiting to be heard. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to answer that invitation, with practical steps to heal and reclaim your true self. Inspired by Carl Jung's path to individuation. So, let's reflect. Do you ever feel like Sarah, apologizing for existing, or like Michael, running from stillness to avoid the ache? Share your thoughts in the comments below, What's one echo of emotional neglect you've noticed in your life? Stay with us, because the journey to healing starts with seeing these patterns clearly. Takeaway: your habits today might be echoes of a childhood that taught you to hide, but recognizing them is the first step to breaking free. The wounds of emotional neglect don't vanish on their own, but they don't have to define you forever. Healing is possible not through chasing perfection or seeking validation, but by turning inward and offering yourself the love you never received. In this chapter, we're exploring the path to healing. Inspired by Carl Jung's concept of individuation, the journey to reclaim your true, whole self through real stories and practical steps, we'll uncover how to recognize the masks you've worn, reconnect with your buried emotions, and become the parent your inner child always needed. This isn't about fixing yourself, it's about seeing yourself, maybe for the first time. So, let's walk this path together and ask, what's one step you can take today to heal? Meet John, a 38-year-old software engineer who always felt like something was missing. Growing up, his parents were too busy with their own problems to notice his addy. He learned to keep his feelings locked away, to be the strong one who never complained. But as an adult, John felt numb, disconnected from his own emotions. One day, he started writing in a journal, not about his day, but about what he felt, the anger he never expressed, the sadness he buried, the joy he rarely let himself feel. For the first time, John gave his emotions a voice. It wasn't easy. His inner critic screamed that his feelings were stupid or weak. But with every word he wrote, John began to see himself, to hear the boy who'd been waiting for decades to be acknowledged. This is where healing begins, with noticing. Carl Jung taught that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Emotional neglect buries parts of you, your emotions, your needs, your true self, in the unconscious. Healing means bringing those parts back into the light, not with judgment, but with compassion. The first step is recognizing the masks you've worn to survive. Are you the hero, always achieving to prove your worth? The caretaker, giving until you're empty? Or the invisible one, hiding to stay safe? Noticing when you slip into these roles, when you say I'm fine but you're not. When you smile to avoid conflict. When you push yourself too hard, is the start of breaking their hold. The next step is reconnecting with your emotions. This can feel foreign, even scary. If you grew up believing your feelings were a burden, start small. Pause in a quiet moment and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Maybe it's sadness, anger, or even a flicker of joy. Don't judge it. Just name it. If you struggle to identify your emotions, that's okay. Emotional neglect often disconnects you from your inner world. Try writing, like John did, or speaking your feelings aloud to yourself. You might say, I feel overwhelmed, or I'm scared of failing. Naming your emotions gives them space to exist. And that's a radical act of self-love for someone who was taught to hide them. Another key step is reparenting yourself. Carl Jung believed that healing comes from integrating the rejected parts of your psyche, especially the tender, vulnerable ones. Reparenting means becoming the caregiver your inner child never had. Imagine that child you at 8, 10, 12 years old, waiting for someone to notice their pain, their dreams, their fears. What would you say to them now? Maybe, I see you. It's okay to feel this way. You're not alone. This isn't about grand gestures, it's about small, consistent acts of kindness toward yourself. Maybe you set a boundary and say no to an extra task at work. Maybe you take a walk just to enjoy the breeze. without needing to earn it. These moments tell your inner child, you matter, just as you are. Let's look at Anna, a 30-year-old graphic designer who spent years as the caretaker, always putting others first. She grew up in a family where her emotions were dismissed, so she learned to prioritize everyone else's needs. But one day, Anna decided to try something new. She started saying no to small things, extra favors, late-night calls from friends. At first, guilt flooded her, but she kept going, reminding herself, my needs matter too. She began setting aside one evening a week for herself, painting or reading, things she loved but had long neglected. Slowly, Anna started to feel more real, more whole. She wasn't just the caretaker anymore, she was Anna, with dreams and desires of her own. Healing also means grieving what was lost. Carl Jung believed that true growth requires facing our pain, not running from it. Emotional neglect leaves a real loss, the connection you craved, the safety you deserved, the love you didn't receive. Allow yourself to mourn that. It's okay to feel sad for the child who waited, to feel angry at the silence you faced. Grieving isn't about staying stuck, it's about making space for something new to grow. Try writing a letter to your younger self, acknowledging their pain and promising to show up for them now. This act of compassion can be a powerful step toward healing. These steps: noticing, naming emotions, reparenting. Grieving aren't a quick fix. Healing is a slow, gentle process, like tending a garden. Some days, you'll feel progress. Others, you'll slip back into old patterns. That's okay. Carl Jung said, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. Every time you pause to listen to yourself, you're awakening a little more. You're telling the child inside you, I'm here now. I won't leave. And that's where the transformation begins. So, here's a challenge. Try one small act of self-compassion today. Maybe it's writing down one feeling you've been ignoring. Maybe it's saying no to something that drains you. Share in the comments what's one step you'll take to start healing. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to fully reclaim your true self, letting go of the masks, and stepping into a life where you're seen for who you are. Stay with us, because this journey is about becoming whole. Takeaway: healing begins when you choose to see yourself with the kindness you never received. There comes a moment when the masks you've worn, the hero, the caretaker, the invisible one, start to feel too tight, too heavy, too false. You begin to wonder, who am I beneath all this? Reclaiming your true self isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were before the world taught you to hide. In this final chapter, inspired by Carl Jung's path to individuation, we'll explore how to let go of those masks, embrace your authentic self, and build a life where you're seen for who you truly are. Through real stories and practical steps, we'll uncover how to live with courage, honesty, and freedom. So, let's ask, what would it feel like to finally be you? Meet Maria, a 32-year-old writer who spent years as the caretaker, always putting others first. Growing up, her family dismissed her emotions, so she learned to be the good daughter who never made waves. She said yes to every request, smiled through every disappointment, and buried her own dreams. But one day, Maria hit a breaking point. She was exhausted, resentful, and disconnected from herself. And she made a choice. She started saying no. She turned down a family event to spend a weekend writing something she loved but had long neglected. At first, guilt gnawed at her, but as she sat with her notebook, words flowing freely. Maria felt a spark of joy she hadn't known in years. She wasn't just the caretaker anymore. She was Maria, a woman with her own voice, her own story. This is what reclaiming your true self looks like: small, brave choices that honor who you are. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the journey to integrate all parts of yourself, especially the ones you were taught to hide. For those who've experienced emotional neglect, those hidden parts are often the most tender: your needs, your desires, your unfiltered emotions. Reclaiming them means letting go of the belief that you have to earn love by performing, pleasing, or disappearing. It means choosing yourself, not with arrogance, but with quiet conviction that you are enough, just as you are. The first step is to loosen the mask's grip. Carl Jung taught that the persona, the mask you wear to fit in, is useful but dangerous when it becomes your identity. Start noticing when you're playing a role. Are you saying yes when you want to say no? Smiling when you're hurting? Staying silent to avoid rejection? These moments are clues. Instead of judging yourself, get curious. Ask, why am I doing this? What am I afraid of? For Maria, saying no felt terrifying. At first she feared disappointing others, but she realized her fear wasn't about them. It was about losing the safety of her caretaker role. By naming that fear, she took the first step toward letting it go. Next, give yourself permission to feel. Emotional neglect teaches you to suppress your emotions, to see them as messy or unimportant. But your feelings are the language of your true self. Try this the next time you feel angry, sad, or joyful. Don't push it away. Pause and sit with it. Maybe you're angry because someone crossed a boundary. Let yourself feel it without rushing to fix it. Maybe you're joyful about a small win. Let yourself celebrate without needing to earn it. If this feels hard, start small. Write down one emotion each day. Like, I felt frustrated when my boss ignored my idea. This simple act of acknowledgement is like opening a door to the real you. Another step is to redefine what love means to you. Emotional neglect often leaves you chasing love that feels conditional, tied to what you do rather than who you are. Reclaiming your true self means seeking relationships, whether with friends, partners, or even yourself, that honor your authenticity. For Maria, this meant surrounding herself with people who valued her for her thoughts, not just her help. It meant setting boundaries, like telling her family, I need time for myself this weekend. It also meant loving herself enough to pursue her writing, even when it felt selfish. Love, in its truest form, doesn't demand performance. It celebrates presence. Carl Jung said, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. This is the heart of reclaiming your true self, choosing who you want to be, not who you had to be to survive. It's about letting go of the old story that you're only valuable when you're useful, impressive, or invisible, and writing a new one. Try this exercise. Write down one thing you love about yourself that has nothing to do with what you do for others. Maybe it's your curiosity, your sense of humor, or the way you notice beauty in small things. This isn't arrogance, it's truth. Your worth was never tied to your masks. It's rooted in your existence. But here's the reality: this journey isn't always easy. Old patterns will pull you back. The hero will want to keep achieving. The caretaker will feel guilty for saying no. The invisible one will shrink to avoid attention. When that happens, don't shame yourself. Acknowledge those patterns for what they are: survival strategies that once protected you. Say to them, thank you for keeping me safe, but I don't need you to run my life anymore. Each time you choose authenticity over performance, you're rewriting your story. Step by step, let's reflect on David, a 45-year-old accountant who spent decades as the invisible one. He avoided attention, kept his opinions to himself, and stayed in the background. But after years of feeling unfulfilled, David decided to try something new. He joined a local book club and, for the first time, shared his thoughts on a novel. His voice shook, but the group listened. They saw him. That small act of courage sparked a shift. David started speaking up at work, sharing ideas he'd kept hidden for years. He began to feel more real, more alive, not because he was perfect, but because he was finally himself. Reclaiming your true self is a slow, sacred process. It's not about dramatic transformation, it's about consistent, quiet choices to show up as you. It's saying no when you need rest. It's speaking your truth, even when your voice trembles. It's choosing relationships that see you, not your mask. Every step you take toward authenticity is a step toward freedom. So, here's a challenge. What's one thing you can do this week to be more you? Maybe it's sharing a feeling you've kept hidden or pursuing a passion you've ignored. Share it in the comments below. We'd love to hear your story. Takeaway: you don't need to earn love. You are enough just by being you. You've just walked a powerful journey through the silent wounds of emotional neglect, the masks we wear to survive, and the path to reclaiming your true self. Inspired by Carl Jung's timeless wisdom, we've uncovered a truth. The pain of being unseen doesn't have to define you. That child inside you, the one who waited for love, for validation, for someone to say, "I see you," they're still there. And they're not broken. They're waiting for you to show up, to offer the kindness they never received, to remind them they've always been enough. This is your moment. You have the power to rewrite your story, to let go of the masks, and to live as the real, whole, beautiful you. So, what's next? Take that first step today. Maybe it's pausing to name one feeling you've buried. Maybe it's saying no to something that doesn't serve you. Or maybe it's looking in the mirror and saying, "You are enough." This journey isn't about perfection, it's about courage. About choosing yourself again and again. If this video moved you, hit that like button to let us know. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message. It could change their life. And don't forget to subscribe to Jung Psyche Hub and hit the bell so you never miss a step on this path to self-discovery. Drop a comment below. What's one thing you'll do today to see yourself a little more clearly? You were never invisible. You were always worthy of love. Now go out there and live like you believe it. We'll see you in the next video.